Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. We have more gaming and PlayStation news, rumours and leaks to go over. If you enjoyed today's video, please show your support by hitting that like button. Now over the past couple of days, quite a few people across social media have been getting carried away with Xbox games being in the top 10 on the PlayStation charts. I mean, some of the discord around this is pretty embarrassing and pretty ridiculous. What a lot of these people, those that are getting carried away, what they're not thinking about is that these games are Xbox games, as in they're available on Xbox. And yet, those very same games that people are banging the drum about and cheering that they're in the top 10 on PlayStation, they hardly sell on the Xbox platform. I mean, hardly anyone actually buys those Xbox games. I mean, hardly anyone buys games on Xbox anyway, but those games, they're not selling on Xbox's platform. So when these games do release on PlayStation, of course, it's a platform where the vast majority of gamers actually buy their games. If you regularly follow PlayStation or you're invested in the platform, you're like, nah, what's the big deal? Gamers on PlayStation are just doing what they've always done. If a game comes out that they like, they'll buy it. Simple. Not wait or beg for the game to be dropped into a subscription service. So this all comes about after the latest quarterly sales information dropped over the last few days or so. And according to Sicana's Matt Piscatella, who regularly analyzes and shares data from the video game industry, Microsoft has become a major force, apparently, on PlayStation 5, not just with one or two games, but with multiple games holding top spots within the top 10 in the sales ranking for the second quarter of the year. Now, out of the top 10 best-selling games on PlayStation during the second quarter of 2025, 6 of them were published and released by Microsoft. At the very top of the list was Forza Horizon 5. This game used to be an Xbox exclusive game, and now it's thriving on PlayStation. And right behind it in second place was Elder Scrolls Oblivion Remastered, which continues to perform well thanks to its nostalgic appeal and updated visuals. Other Microsoft published titles filling up the top 10 include Call of Duty Black Ops 6, Doom the Dark Ages, Minecraft and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. That's more than half of the top 10 occupied by games that have been published and released by a company, Microsoft, that once kept most of its biggest franchises locked to Xbox. To put it simply, Microsoft is now one of the biggest players, if you like, on PlayStation. Another thing that some people with tinted glasses seem to have missed here is that of the 6 games that are currently in the PlayStation top 10 charts, 4 of them have always been multi-platform titles, as in they've always been available to purchase on PlayStation. That's Call of Duty, Minecraft, Doom, and Elder Scrolls. It's not as if they've been developed from the ground up by Microsoft and then pushed onto PlayStation. I mean, context is everything, right? If you go out and spend near enough $100 billion on publishers and studios as a third-party publisher, if your games are not in the top 10, heads are going to roll, right? Matt Piscatella himself commented on the situation, saying that while putting together Sicana's Q2 games market report, he stopped and stared at the particular chart in disbelief. Wild times in the console market these days, he wrote. He even added that if someone had shown this list to him back in 2015, he wouldn't have believed it. The change in Microsoft's approach began last year when the company decided to open up its previously exclusive Xbox titles to other platforms like PlayStation and Nintendo. And we all know the reasons, right? Failing hardware, Xbox gamers not buying enough games, too much reliance on Game Pass, struggling third-party game sales, problems with optimizing games for the Series S. I mean, the list is endless. It continues. The first Xbox games to break the barrier were Sea of Thieves and Hi-Fi Rush. They were 2 of 4 games. Both of these games were received very well by players on the new platforms. That move was just the beginning though, because in April 2025, Microsoft released Forza Horizon 5 and Indiana Jones and the Great Circle onto PlayStation 5. Again, both games made a big impact. And with Gears of War Reloaded scheduled to launch on PlayStation in August, Microsoft is clearly leaning into being a third-party publisher. Even though Microsoft has been expanding its software reach to rival consoles, officially it's not abandoned its own hardware efforts. Both Microsoft and Sony are still working closely with AMD on the development of their next generation systems, showing that both of these companies are still very much in the hardware game, just perhaps with a different approach to the industry than previously. During a recent earnings call, Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella shared some interesting insights. Despite a reported 22% drop in Xbox hardware sales compared to the previous year, Satya Nadella proudly announced that Microsoft was once again the top-selling publisher on PlayStation for Q2 2025. Many of the titles that performed well, Call of Duty, Doom, Minecraft, Oblivion were developed by studios acquired by Microsoft after high-profile acquisitions totaling nearly $80 billion. These are companies that had traditionally released their games, as I mentioned before, across all platforms before they were acquired by Microsoft. So their strong performance on PlayStation is really not that surprising. And yet it's strange to see people running away with it as it's some kind of major success. This has always been the case. So I really don't understand the discord around it. I mean, it's ridiculous. What it does demonstrate is the incapability of certain people to analyze information and make accurate deductions from data. Ultimately, what this means for players is more access to games, regardless of what console they own. And from a business perspective, it shows that Microsoft is fully embracing its position as arguably one of the biggest third-party publishers. I mean, I'd probably say maybe Tencent is probably up there as well with Microsoft. I'm not sure which one of the two is the bigger, but they're certainly up there as one of the world's biggest third-party publishers. I suppose it needs PlayStation's platform, though, to distribute all those games because they definitely are not selling them on Xbox, right? This trend of releasing games on PlayStation is not slowing down anytime soon. Later this year, Microsoft plans to release Call of Duty Black Ops 7. Gears of War Reloaded, we know, is coming to PlayStation. Both of these games are expected to sell well. Beyond that, titles like Ninja Gaiden 4 and The Outer Worlds 2 are already in development, and there are whispers that even more ports are being considered for PlayStation. Some of these rumored titles that might take that leap include Microsoft Flight Sim Killer Instinct and other first-party games that have historically been Xbox exclusives like Gears of War E-Day and Halo Remake. So guys, let me know your thoughts on the sales performance of those 6 games performing really well on the PlayStation platform. And let's move on. Metal Gear Solid Delta Snake Eater is one of the most highly anticipated games of the year. Certainly for me, I'm really looking forward to this game, with a release date set for August the 28th. Now, fans of the series are keen to see the return of the iconic stealth action game, a full remake of the 2004 classic Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater. Now, the new version promises updated visuals, enhanced gameplay mechanics, and detailed character models to take advantage of current generation consoles. While the core story and gameplay remain true to the original, Delta features an impressive graphical overhaul. The environments, character animations, and visual effects have all been rebuilt from scratch using modern tech, bringing the world of Snake Eater to life in a way that wasn't possible back on the PlayStation 2. However, in an effort to retain the authenticity of the original experience, the game still uses the original voice recordings from the 2004 release. That means players can expect the same iconic performances, but now surrounded by a far more realistic and immersive world. Despite all of this excitement, there is one person who will not be playing this remake. The legend, the myth, the man, Hideo Kojima, the guy who created the Metal Gear Solid series and served as the visionary behind the entire franchise. He will not be playing this remake. In a recent interview with fashion and culture outlet Sense, Kojima was asked whether he planned to play Metal Gear Solid Delta, and his response was simple and brief: no, I won't. This might be disappointing to some fans, but it's not exactly surprising. Kojima had a well-publicized and rocky split from Konami back in 2015, which led to the end of his involvement with the Metal Gear series. Since then, Kojima has moved on to create new titles under his own studio, Kojima Productions, including the critically acclaimed Death Stranding series. Kojima also used the interview as an opportunity to share his thoughts on the current state of the gaming industry. After watching this year's Summer Game Fest, he noted that many of the titles showcased featured similar themes and styles, often involving battles with alien creatures or medieval-style enemies. He goes on to say even the visuals and the systems are pretty much the same. While Kojima acknowledged that there is an audience for these types of games, he stressed the importance of introducing truly new and original concepts and IP into the mix. For him, innovation is what keeps the industry alive and evolving. So while Metal Gear Solid Delta may be a polished and faithful remake, it also stands as a reminder of Kojima's absence and the creative vision that once drove the series forward. Regardless of whether he plays it or not, the game continues to carry the weight of his legacy, even as it tries to carve out a future without him. I mean, I suppose it was always going to be difficult for Kojima to go back and play something that he spent years creating. Maybe it's too painful for him to go back and play. Maybe it reminds him too much of his time spent developing the game at Konami and the painful split from the team and the studio. Guys, let me know your thoughts on this and let's move on. Ready or Not, the tactical first-person shooter developed by Void Interactive, is proving to be a massive hit on consoles. Just 2 weeks after launching on PlayStation 5 and Xbox, the game has already sold over 2 million copies. There's that magic word. A metric we can all relate to. It sold 2 million copies. Fantastic job. The announcement came directly from Void Interactive CEO Julio Rodriguez via LinkedIn, where he thanked both players and the development team for the overwhelming support. Originally released in early access for PC around December 2021, Ready or Not steadily built a dedicated player base over the next few years. The game was fully released on Steam in 2023, but console players had to wait until July 15th of this year to get their hands on it. That wait clearly didn't dampen interest, with the game reaching 1 million sales in just 4 days and doubling that number shortly after. In his post, Rodriguez praised the community for bringing order to chaos, a nod to the game's focus on realistic strategic law enforcement gameplay. He also commended the development team for creating what he described as the quintessential tactical FPS of our era. Ready or Not offers players a gritty, immersive experience where they step into the boots of a SWAT team member tasked with handling high-risk scenarios. The game includes 20 missions that can be played solo or cooperatively with up to 5 players. Each mission carries careful planning, communication, and tactical execution. This isn't your typical run-and-gun shooter. Every door breach, suspect encounter, and hostage situation must be handled with precision and care. Customization also plays a big role within the game. Players can modify their SWAT operators with a variety of gear, from body armor and helmets to an extensive arsenal of firearms. There's also a growing list of free downloadable content, including the stories from Los Sueños missions, which expand the game's narrative and provide new challenges. The success of Ready or Not on consoles shows that there's still a strong appetite for grounded, realistic shooters that emphasize teamwork and strategy over flashy action. This also reflects the growing influence of games that prioritize immersion and detail, something Void Interactive has clearly delivered on. Whether you're playing alone or with a squad, Ready or Not offers a tense, rewarding experience that stands out in a crowded FPS market. And with more updates and content likely on the way, its momentum shows no signs of slowing down. But let me know if you've played this game, guys. Let me know your thoughts on it in the comments down below, and let's move on. Now, publisher Nacon and developer Rogue Factor have released a fresh look at their upcoming action RPG Hell Is Us, giving fans a full 7-minute preview of gameplay. Now, this new footage focuses on the game's unique exploration and dungeon investigation mechanics, which aim to put players back in control of how they uncover the world and solve its mysteries. The game's story revolves around a region torn apart by a brutal civil war, but the chaos on the surface is just part of what makes the world of Hell Is Us so intriguing, because beneath the land lies ancient dungeons filled with puzzles, enemies, and pieces of history that are essential to understanding the strange events plaguing the country. Now, according to the game's creative art director, Jonathan Jacquet Bellatete, Hell Is Us is built on a design philosophy the team calls player plattering. It's a term they use to describe the approach of letting players figure things out on their own without constant guidance or hand-holding. Unlike many modern games that rely heavily on mini-maps, waypoints, or glowing indicators, the game pushes players to pay close attention to their surroundings, use logic, and learn through observation and trial and error. Each dungeon in Hell Is Us has its own theme, challenges, and gameplay twists. No two locations are the same, and players will need to adapt their approach depending on the layout and the threats that they face. Whether it's solving strange puzzles, navigating through maze-like corridors, or facing off against enemies in intense combat, every dungeon serves a purpose in both gameplay and storytelling. And these areas are not just optional side content either, they're a core part of the game experience. Every dungeon connects to the overall narrative, slowly revealing the deep and often unsettling history of this game. And by the time players emerge from these underground dungeons, they won't just have new skills and loot, they will also walk away with a better understanding of the world's dark past. The game is scheduled to release on September the 4th, and I cannot wait to play this game. I really like the fact that there's no or very little hand-holding in this game. Guys, let me know your thoughts on Hell Is Us, and let's move on. Now, while Hell Is Us is preparing to make its debut in September, one of Sony's biggest and most successful game franchises, Horizon, has hit another major milestone, but not without a little bit of controversy. In newly surfaced documents from a lawsuit filed by Sony against Chinese tech giant Tencent, it was revealed that Horizon series has now sold over 38 million copies worldwide since it first launched in 2017. That figure includes all releases, which include the original Horizon Zero Dawn to Horizon Forbidden West and the remastered versions for the PlayStation 5. With those kinds of numbers, it's clear that Horizon has become a major pillar in Sony's first-party lineup. The franchise originally started with Horizon Zero Dawn, which released back on the PlayStation 4 in 2017 by Guerrilla Games. It introduced players to a post-apocalyptic world where humanity fights for survival in a land dominated by robotic creatures. Its sequel, Horizon Forbidden West, followed in 2022, and it expanded the world further, refining the gameplay while also continuing Aloy's journey. A PlayStation 5 remaster of the first game was released in 2024 with upgraded visuals and performance improvements. Looking ahead, there's already talk of a third mainline game in the works, reportedly aiming for a release in 2027. It's said to be targeting both the current PlayStation 5 and Sony's upcoming next-generation console, the PlayStation 6. But along with this success comes a legal issue that could shape the way the franchise is protected moving forward. According to Sony, Tencent has created a game called Light of Mortirum that bears an uncanny resemblance to the Horizon series. In court documents, Sony argues that Light of Mortirum appears to have copied not just the setting, which is a futuristic world with machine-like creatures and survival elements, but also much of the visual and gameplay style that made Horizon unique. Sony claims that even if Tencent didn't directly ask for permission to use the intellectual property, the similarities are hard to ignore. This legal conflict puts a spotlight on how competitive the gaming industry has become and how closely companies watch for potential infringement. And while Tencent hasn't publicly responded in detail, the situation raises questions about originality and creative ownership within the gaming industry. I mean, any kind of plagiarism is a concern, right? I'm sure we'll get more details of this as things unfold over the next few weeks and months ahead. But it's interesting to me to hear how Horizon has performed over the last few years. I wasn't aware that the game had sold 38 million copies since release across the franchise. And it's great hearing that. It's great listening to that. I found out about it this week, considering the way people talk negatively about the game across social media, especially those that have never actually played the game. And once again, it just shows that these social media channels, they're not the reality of the lived world, despite constant negativity surrounding the Horizon games by maybe it's a certain fan base, maybe it's people that have a problem with the lead character, whatever it is. It's great to see the franchise thriving where we actually have real life examples of the game doing well. I mean, 38 million units sold of a game which was first introduced in 2017. I mean, the franchise is not even 10 years old, and that's a pretty astonishing number of units sold across the franchise. So well done Guerrilla Games and well done Horizon. Guys, let's move on. As the cost of developing video games continues to rise, so does the pressure on publishers to adjust their pricing models. Some companies have already started testing the waters with more expensive games, setting new price points above the industry standard of $70 or £70. But EA, one of the biggest names in gaming, has made it very clear for now, at least for now, they're not planning to follow that trend. In a recent quarterly earnings call, CEO of EA, Andrew Wilson, addressed the topic head on. When he was asked about if the company was considering increasing the base price of its upcoming games to $80, Wilson responded plainly, "No changes are planned at this stage." So he left that bit in there, but no changes are planned. That means fans can expect EA standard edition games, including major titles like Battlefield 6 and the highly anticipated Star Wars Zero Company, to remain at the 70 mark when they launch. Wilson went on to explain EA's broader pricing approach, which focuses on flexibility and offering different options for different types of players. And he goes on to say that we've always maintained a fair, broad pricing scheme across our products. So we offer everything from free-to-play experiences all the way up to premium and deluxe editions. That strategy is about meeting players where they are, giving them choices. In other words, EA isn't looking at pricing from a one-size-fits-all perspective. Instead, they're trying to create a pricing model that accommodates different budgets, preferences, and play styles. Whether someone wants to try a free game, buy the base version, or invest in a more feature-rich deluxe edition, they will have the choice to do that. This isn't the first time Wilson has spoken about EA's pricing philosophy. Back in May, he made similar comments saying that the company's goal is to deliver incredible quality and exponential value to its player base regardless of the price tag. It's a message that aligns with how EA positions its biggest franchises, not just as entertainment products, but as long-term services that keep players engaged through updates, content drops, and community features. EA's position comes at a time when some of its competitors are already experimenting with higher prices. Nintendo, for example, made the headlines by pricing Mario Kart World, a launch title for the Nintendo Switch 2, at $80. That marked the first time a first-party Nintendo title has gone beyond the 70 mark. Microsoft initially planned to release The Outer Worlds 2 at the same price, $80 or £80. However, following backlash and poor pre-order numbers, they reversed that decision. Microsoft went on to say that the change was made to keep the price in line with current market conditions. In this context, EA's decision to hold steady on pricing might work in its favor. Gamers are more price conscious than ever before, especially with inflation affecting costs across the world in almost all walks of life. Among the most anticipated EA upcoming releases is Battlefield 6, which is set to take the series back to modern day warfare with a revamped multiplayer experience and a cinematic single player campaign. Then there's Star Wars Zero Company, a tactical squad-based game set in the Star Wars universe that's expected to offer a new kind of gameplay experience compared to the more action-heavy titles in the franchise. These games, along with EA's regular lineup of yearly sports titles like FIFA, which is now called EAFC, Madden NFL, and NHL, make up a diverse portfolio. And as of now, the base editions of all these games will be capped at $70 or £70. I mean, regardless of what we really think of EA, it's good to have them come out and say that their games are sticking to 70, right? We certainly don't want them to go any higher, but yeah, good to know that they're sticking to 70 for now anyway. Guys, let's move on. I briefly touched on this earlier in the video, but as it turns out, Microsoft may be preparing to bring more of its flagship franchises to the PlayStation 5. Recent updates to online resumes and developer profiles have hinted that Gears of War E-Day, the next major installment in the long-running shooter series, might not be an Xbox exclusive after all. According to a report from MP First, a game designer working at the Coalition, that's the studio behind Gears of War, listed PlayStation 5 as one of the platforms for E-Day alongside Xbox and PC. This is significant because the Gears of War franchise has never appeared on a PlayStation system until now. Next month, Gears of War Reloaded is set to launch on PlayStation. This re-release of a past Gears game is seen by many as a way to test the water with PlayStation audiences, and if it performs well, which let's be honest, it will do very well on PlayStation, provided if it's optimized for PlayStation 5, which I suspect it will be now, given that Microsoft has been testing a few of these games, and those that have been optimized for the PlayStation 5 have done really well. So I suspect it will do well, and what will happen going forward is that it will open the door to future Gears games like E-Day to be released day and date alongside Xbox and PC releases. But Gears is not the only series possibly making the leap. A similar update was spotted in the resume of a developer at Undead Labs, the studio behind State of Decay franchise. Now, the listing included PlayStation 5 as a platform for State of Decay 3, which, like Gears of War E-Day, doesn't yet have an official release date, but is expected sometime in 2026. And while Microsoft hasn't confirmed this move, all signs are pointing towards this happening, where Xbox's biggest games are not limited to just the Xbox and PC platforms. There's also talk about whether State of Decay 1 and 2 could also be eventually ported over to PlayStation 5. If Microsoft does decide to go down this route, it would help introduce a certain amount of PlayStation players to the series before the third installment drops if they've never played State of Decay games before. That could make sense from a business standpoint, especially as Microsoft continues to drive its third-party publisher strategy forward. However, there is a little bit of uncertainty surrounding Undead Labs right now. Rumours of internal layoffs have created some doubt about the studio's capacity to handle multiple platform releases. It's unclear how this might affect development timelines or release strategies moving forward. Guys, lots been discussed today. Let me know your thoughts in the comments about the content, and I'll catch you on the next video.